The young sailor who touched the sand first barely had time to register the moment. He took one step, then another, and the world fell silent behind him, because ahead, just beyond the shoreline, the forest opened, and a human silhouette appeared. The figure stood still at the edge of the trees, a young man, bare-chested, with sun-bronzed skin, dark hair tied behind his head, and decorations made of feathers and woven fibers. He watched the Spaniards with an expression that held no fear, only analysis, curiosity, and an almost serene confidence. The sailors froze. Some sucked in their breath, others exchanged frantic glances. Whispers rippled across the group. Is he alone? Are there more behind him? What if he's a warrior? Columbus raised a hand, commanding silence. The distance between the two groups was small, no more than 15 paces, and yet it represented centuries. Two worlds, separated not by an ocean, but by history itself, stood face to face for the first time. The native man leaned his head slightly, examining every detail: the heavy clothing of the Europeans, their pale sunburned faces, the strange gleam of metal weapons, the red and gold banner in Columbus's hand. He had never seen anything like them, but still, he did not retreat. That quiet confidence unsettled the Spaniards. Slowly, the native lifted his right hand, palm open, facing upward, a peaceful gesture, an invitation, a test. Columbus took a slow breath. History pressed on his shoulders. De la Cosa whispered, "He recognizes us as men." Columbus imitated the gesture. Hand raised, palms open, the air tightened. No one dared move. Two hands, from two worlds, reflected each other in silence. Suddenly, the leaves behind the native rustled. More figures emerged, stepping into sight. 2 women, 3 children, 2 other men with pale markings painted across their skin. They formed a subtle semicircle behind the first man. None carried visible weapons. The Spaniards exhaled in relief and confusion. It was no longer a single figure, it was a community. A people. The realization struck the Europeans like a wave. They were not alone. This land was not empty. The first man spoke. His voice was rhythmic, warm, musical, a language the Europeans had never heard. The sailors looked at one another, helpless. Is he greeting us? Is he warning us? What is he saying? Columbus responded in Castilian too loudly. Peace, we come in peace. The natives recoiled slightly. Pinzon whispered, lower your voice. They don't understand your words, only your tone. Columbus nodded, tried again. The native listened intently, reading not the meaning, but the intention. And he understood, at least partly. Columbus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, polished metal coin. He stepped forward, placed it gently on the sand, and stepped back. The coin glittered in the sunlight. The native man approached slowly, kneeled, picked it up. He examined it as though it were a precious stone. He turned it, smelled it, tapped it. The others gathered around him, whispering in awe. A woman brushed her finger over its cold metallic surface. A child laughed softly. Columbus watched, realizing the power of that tiny gesture. The native leader turned toward a nearby bush, crouched, and retrieved a small yellow fruit, fragrant and fresh. He walked back, placed it exactly where the coin had been, and stepped away. A gift for a gift, a universal language older than any empire. The sailors stared, stunned. Pinso murmure, they offer peace. De la Cosa answered. An intelligence. Columbus approached the fruit. He lifted it, smelled it, and examined it carefully. The natives watched every motion, fascinated. He cut a small piece with the point of his knife, tasted it, and smiled. It was sweet, refreshing, unlike anything he had known. His smile softened the tension instantly. Several sailors laughed nervously. The native children stepped forward, giggling. The forest no longer felt threatening. The air grew warmer, lighter. History was unfolding, gently, quietly. The native children approached the Spaniards cautiously, touching their clothes, feeling the fabric, tugging at threads. A young sailor knelt, letting them examine his hair. The children laughed, a high, clear sound that melted fear on both sides. A Spaniard whispered, "They are just like our children, only born in another world." The divide between the two cultures shrank in seconds. But Columbus, even while smiling, was calculating. He analyzed the physique of the men, the absence of metal tools, the structure of their shelters, the organization of family units, their openness and curiosity. He saw kindness, he saw humanity, but he also saw opportunity and power. He whispered to himself, "They are not dangerous. They are welcoming." Then, a quieter thought, they could be allies, or subjects to interpretations in one mind. A new figure walked out from the forest, older, stronger, with white body markings and a posture that radiated authority. The chatter of the natives stopped instantly. Pinson murmured, "This is their leader." The man approached slowly, measured, serious. He examined each Spaniard carefully, not in fear, but in judgment. Then he spoke in a deeper, slower rhythm. The others fell silent. The Spaniards straightened, unsure. The air tightened. A decision was being made. The leader stopped before Columbus. They faced each other directly. Columbus did not blink. The leader touched the royal banner, dragging his fingers across the red and gold fabric. He studied it, Then he placed a hand on his own chest, a clear sign, acceptance. A murmur rose among the natives, not alarm but approval. He then extended his arm, inviting Columbus and his crew to go deeper into the forest. Pinzon released a long breath. De la Cosa nodded. Columbus lifted his chin. We have been welcomed, but he also understood. This was not the end of the discovery, it was the beginning. The Spaniards followed the natives toward the dense forest. With every step, the silence grew heavier. Every sound, every leaf, every bird call, every whisper of wind felt like a new chapter being written. The meeting had happened, but the consequences were only beginning. Two worlds had touched, and neither would ever be the same again. The forest swallowed the shadows of the native group as they guided Columbus and his men toward the heart of their settlement. Behind them, the beach, the place where two worlds first recognized one another, slowly disappeared from sight. But ahead, the unknown waited, a world untouched by Europe, a world that would soon feel the weight of history. As the Spaniards followed the narrow path, the morning sun filtered through the leaves in golden beams. The light danced across the native dwellings, circular huts made of woven branches and palm leaves, arranged in a pattern the Europeans did not understand. Children peeked from behind trees. Women carrying baskets paused and stared, cautious yet unafraid. Elderly men watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. One sailor whispered, "They live in peace. Like the forest is part of them," Pinzon mooded. "And they are many more than we expected." Columbus took in every detail, not with fear but with strategy. As they reached the center of the settlement, the Spaniards realized something fundamental. This was not a random scattering of huts. It was a community organized, intentional, structured. They saw racks of drying fish, tools made of bone and polished stone, gourds filled with water, clay pots heating over small fires, woven mats spread neatly on the ground. De la Cosa noted softly, "They are not wanderers, they are settlers." Columbus nodded, impressed. This was a society, one shaped by a rhythm of life Europe had never imagined. The villagers placed woven baskets in front of the Spaniards, filled with offerings, roasted roots, fresh fruit, small portions of smoked fish, a thick, reddish paste with a sweet aroma. The Europeans hesitated. They had no idea what was safe to eat. Seeing this, one of the native women picked up a piece of fruit and ate it with a smile. Then she offered it again. The message was clear. Trust. Columbus took a bite first. His eyes widened. It was delicious, sweet, refreshing, completely new. The tension broke instantly. Sailors laughed nervously as they tasted the food. Some closed their eyes, savoring it. Others let out sighs of relief. A simple meal became the bridge that softened centuries of cultural distance. Children ran closer, emboldened by the growing sense of safety. They touched the Spaniards' beards, their armor, their boots, the crosses around their necks. A sailor named Rodrigo sat cross-legged and allowed a group of them to braid his hair with small leaves. The children laughed, and for the first time since the departure from Palos, the Spaniards laughed too, a deep, relieved, genuine laughter. One sailor whispered, "They are like our own children. They just live under a different sun." A young girl approached Columbus holding a string of small beads made of polished seeds. She placed it gently around his wrist. The admiral stared at it, a simple, beautiful gesture, and felt the weight of significance. He removed a small silver pendant from his neck and placed it around the girl's shoulders. Her eyes widened with wonder. The villagers watched with quiet approval. This exchange, silent yet powerful, was another step, the first signs of mutual admiration. From deeper in the forest came the older man, the leader, accompanied by several others. The Europeans straightened immediately. The leader approached carrying something in his hand, a carved wooden staff, simple but symbolic. His expression was firm, inquisitive, dignified. With slow, deliberate motion, he planted the staff into the ground between the two groups. The earth trembled slightly from the impact. Then he gestured for Columbus to come closer. The admiral did. The chief touched his own chest, then touched Columbus's shoulder, then pointed toward the forest, a message without words. "Follow me. You are guests. You are being shown our world." The chief led them down a separate path, and as they moved deeper into the forest, the landscape changed again. Ahead, they reached a vast clearing much larger than the first, and in that clearing stood something unexpected, a great communal house, far larger than the huts behind them, built with perfect symmetry and supported by thick wooden pillars. Sailors murmured in awe. "They have architecture. This is not chance. This is design. They build with purpose." Columbus stepped forward, stunned. This was not a loose tribe. This was a society, with structure, leadership, and complex craftsmanship. The chief gestured for the Spaniards to sit in a circle. He sat opposite them. The villagers gathered around in silence. Then, from the side, two young men brought bowls filled with a liquid, clear, fragrant, slightly bitter. The chief drank first. Then he offered the bowl to Columbus. The admiral hesitated only a moment before taking a sip. The drink stung his tongue, then filled his mouth with an unfamiliar flavor. A sailor whispered, "It tastes like nothing from Europe." The chief nodded, satisfied. It was symbolic, an acknowledgement. The drink was a welcome. After the ceremony, the chief reached into a woven basket and pulled out something wrapped in leaves. He unwrapped it slowly, Inside was a small carved figure, a human shape, with intricate lines etched across the chest and head. He placed it into Columbus's hands. A collective murmur rippled through the villagers. This was not a casual object. It meant something. Delacosa stared. It's a protective charm, or a symbol of spirit, Pinzon added. They're offering him a part of their world. Columbus held the figure with reverence. Even he felt the gravity. But as the ceremony ended, the forest carried a new sound. Distant, sharp, fast, a rhythmic thudding. The Spaniards stiffened immediately. Pinzon grabbed his dagger. Several sailors clutched the hilts of their swords. The chief looked over his shoulder, expression changing for the first time. Not fear, not panic, but alertness. Something or someone approached. Voices echoed from deeper in the woods. More footsteps, more shadows. The villagers straightened. Chief rose to his feet. He raised a hand to the Spaniards, signaling stay. Do not move. Wait. The forest rustled violently. Figures emerged. Not calmly this time. Not peacefully. And they were not carrying gifts. They carried spears. Short, fast, sharp. The sailors froze. The peaceful encounter was no longer peaceful. The moment of unity was on the brink of collapse. And the two worlds, which had touched so gently hours before, were now staring at each other again, but this time with tension thick as the jungle air. The future of the meeting hung in the balance.